Heritage Brothers, to which President David without sons, and Junior and Clinton, be buried in Memorial Line. As Stephen A. President, young men born in the false prosperity of the 1920s, brought up in the bitter realities of depression in the 30s. None of them wanted to be part of another war. They wanted to do baseball, not anything. Shoot 22 to rabbits, not anyone to another young man. When the test came, when freedom had to be fought for or abandoned, they fought. They were the soldiers of democracy. They were the men of the day. To them, we are freedom. They remember, cause remember, it was 80 years ago Thursday. So if you can stand and pledge allegiance, maybe it'll mean something. Here. See to shining sea. Yes.
Well, we have a lot of things together here today, and we're like a theater with a half around microphone together. At every single table, so we can pass it on down the road and come back up this road and so on. Please stand up and introduce yourself, say what project you're working on, what you do in time, whatever, and what project you're critical. So first of all, you mentioned.
Hi everyone, my name is Matt Pepe. I was invited here by Mr. Rodriguez, who's actually a colleague of mine. I am a small business colleague here. I'm here just to meet more folks in Raleigh and a little bit and get a little more involved.
Thank you, Mel. One of the table.
Hey, one minute, well, we got really one, I'll introduce the panels to the intern of the Southeast Raleigh.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth, intern at Southeast Raleigh, and I'm a student at Raleigh Rotary.
But we're sitting small folks, and one whole.
Still very I've done for 30 years, I have two invited me today, so right at still well, okay, Larson Hopper people over here.
I saw Johnny is here too. Happy Friday.
Today. Maybe Larson, very involved, visiting, her wife, and walking. So I'm here to. About it, we'll be back and we'll see it.
Good afternoon, my name is Greg Netley. I'm with Raleigh Rotary, and I'm here representing Pioneer Coast Center. I was then in the Toastmasters and Rotary developed an alliance, and I'm not sure folks have had it here in Raleigh area, certainly well. So I'm here to learn more about this big, and at some point, get more information on those.
people want to, look at it.
Keep the lights in there, things, and, before time to stay, and trying to work a day retired, you know, too much pride every before. And they can all just be people tired.
Yeah, two more, three more guests, and some of the are Steve, returning guest, might be enough. Yeah.
Hi, Steve Martin, return, yeah, a meteorologist.
And you guys are here for her to be praying, Fran, and Peter Snow, go and talk in about him, because he was Meteorologist-in-Charge and everything. We have one of the guests here.
Hi, everyone, Shubha, I should be employee, he's not here today. I open marketing for locally started, I have connections with local businesses, nonprofit partners, and event. For my first, when I take a new look at that, and then.
Certainly not these, our current youth and learning.
Hi, I'm the district governor, I'm assistant governor. Anyway, I'm here today because at our final presidents and president of the meeting that we had on Thursday, it was mentioned that the president of this club are going to be saying a few words about being Singapore. I was find out what that was all about. I also wanted to deliver something that Ron, Mr. Governor, gave me some time ago to acknowledge what we are doing in terms of a donation to the kids. Actually, being able to what we have in the plus. That's the area of so, yes, how. So that's fine.
cleaning up things, and great club. Sadly, as part of that, we also have this bill, for our meals each month, for our meals each week, and other things that we pay monthly. So what I'm asking for is some help in making sure our dues are paid on time. We currently have, 54 members, with a total of $50,000 outstanding. So if you're not sure, know that those, invoices can get the spam filter. If you're not sure, please do, check in, maybe we send you updated invoice. If something has happened, it's kind of puts somebody with a challenging time, we're happy to work with folks. But yeah, we can do, get your dues paid on time. I'm over paying over, I'm trying not to leave them, lurch. So you like the advance project.
Right here, Doris, would you please come up to the front, tell us all about wonderful things in the city board, it's all.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm really excited to share with you my experience last week in Singapore. It was a wonderful trip, and I just give you a little sense of what was going on there, and then hopefully take you with me to the interview itself. But again, I've heard things I don't think. Okay, now we're back to the so here we go.
Other one.
All right, a trip from Raleigh to Singapore has many routes to get there. I took that middle route through London, and the trip itself, we took a lot of planes, including the largest passenger airline in the world, the Airbus 380. It's 2-story tall. It all weighed 10,000 miles. That's one way. And 30 hours in the air or near the it's actually 12 hours long of Raleigh. In other words, you can't go further away from the world and still be on. So 12 hours. You didn't have to change your watch. That I remember. And Singapore is absolutely beautiful. The architecture there is amazing. And it's 12 hours away. And you know, 37 degrees we got there. Now that's a Celsius. With all meteorologists in the room, they will tell you that's about 100 degrees. And the part of the humidity was at 1 billion%. But amazing architecture, that's actually office building. Part there. And that's the most interesting building I've ever seen. It's a hotel, 3 towers, 1 million square feet. And they decided to go ahead and park on top of it with a tree growing up there and the biggest food board I've ever seen. So pretty amazing art. So, but we got a convention. And that convention was amazing, the number of things to do. Lots of training, lots of meeting people, lots of classes, small classes, 15 minutes, hour and a half, I think, lots of learning. And they had people there, you can write about holding the side, and they were vision for peace, they were posted on the tree and let go. And one of the favorite things that you do there is create a flag. You look across the back wall there, those are flags that are from different countries that I've collected, and all of those countries have now flags from Rotary Club of Raleigh that they come with that. So when we give you those flag contribution, that's a lot of taking appearance, love to take pictures for the before, you know about that. Rotary love to take pictures of each other and have themselves. So this is the Japanese contingent, supposed in India. He started approaching Taiwan. Taiwan had a huge presence there. This group had a different color shirt every day of the convention. They had uniforms, basically. Really. The top offending there, Philippines, India, Taiwan, USA, and one of the candidates there. Now, there's a little bit closer to trade. Give you an idea of what the concession is, how it works here. We'll try. visitor center. This is the main headset. And it's speaking like how many people there. Very, very rich. And here's the kicker, that was packed. There were so many people there, they were split into two groups to go to 14,000 volunteers. Then they had a flag parade, they wanted to do that every country where the Rotary was present, had a flag presented. One of the highlights was the flag Scotland presented, Gordon Macmillan, the president is in Scotland, his wife is a professional singer, so she's had Scottish national anthem force. Very. They had local entertainment, and I don't know this, but we've got 5 sisters. And they had dragon dancers there that you see in films or on the streets and things like that. Very athletic, very good. So local talent. And then more that's my president of Scotland, who's off the hill, and had a great review of his current year. His focus was mental health and paid tribute to his brother, Ian, who died because of suicide after struggle with depression. And that provided importance emphasis on mental health. We heard from Colin Scott, who is the winner of Fitness Got Talent. He provided music for us, and then they had lots of training available. And on the trade show floor, we call it the House of Trade Show. It's a big trade show. They had booths for everything you can imagine, but we're supposed to have a booth there as well. People to see about that. They have a circle of centennial clubs. We are a centennial club, we're not in that group. We will get into that group. And I was talking first, they had a group for him. So the Wisdom Drinking was there as well. There's fellowships from those areas like the was again, lots of presentations, and I'm really pleased with what we're joined by Bill Gates by video. And Bill Gates made the announcement that he is doing his commitment to Rotary to do a 2-to-1 match for funding polio eradication. And I saw radio news very passionate about polio eradication that avenue as well. They also announced a new peace center in Turkey. This is again, we'll go ahead and run the video here. This will give you a sense of the trade flow show. You see the number of people. This was actually not limited to but something for everyone, lots of education, lots of people to lead. This is actually running how was. And then one of the great things there is some of the folks wore their national clothes, their national costumes, their traditional attire there. See the thing maybe back in paddling in India. These gentlemen, I consider, well, that is a very formal Korean way of dressing in olden times. So very great. This woman is dressed from China as a Chinese dancer would dress. And even the Americans there, their traditional uniform, their garb, they're so popular. There's American. We heard from Stephanie Urchin, who is our current president, and she talked about her president. She talked about her mission of the year, membership growth, and strategic planning of very important her. And then this last bit I called the Forrest Gump goes to the Rotary International. You know the story of Forrest Gump, running these different people in different places, not like it just happened. Well, let me get this beautiful. One of the Sophie family, they are from Montreal, Alberta. Training today wasn't exactly what we thought. So when we were in one of these and asked her about it, we got to talking. Turns out that her family was from Montreal. I then like it was a huge group of her, about as big as this restaurant. Now I said, by the way, I thought it was a really good idea. We hired a couple of models that we did, have pictures taken with the people who was going to be a short back. So those are models of my daughters. And so we did it all very well. And our company is co-chair of the Calgary Convention. So we have to decide facts that everything going on in Calgary. Wonderful family, here they are on the Zoom and being there. And then I was talking on the phone one day, this man yelled out, here, and I didn't know him. but our neighbors don't know that. That happened to Felix, his meeting. And Felix was a fascinating guy. He is a Rotarian. He runs a business of safaris and tour guides. He decided a few years ago to take the profits, or a big piece of the profits of the business, and dedicate those to women's causes in Tanzania, helping bring women opportunities to good health care. And because of that, the village where he lived elected him as chief of the village. And so he's there, the village straight to get the money to send it here, and so we were there at the village together, fascinating guys, amazing things that we did in new technology. And he said that if we get to Calgary and decide that the Raleigh will come and present a program for us. So Harrison, we had a program, we'll see if it could be that. And then incoming Rotary president mentioned the verbal data session about leadership. And all of the speakers with Marius and Don, he's Marco, he will be the Rotary president after. Stephanie, he is with Argentina, a no-nonsense business guy. I think he can bring some real things to Rotary and improvements. And I will be doing this. Yeah. And then finally, went to the final dinner there. It was for the interview presidents. I walked through the place for that 2,000 people. They're looking for a seat where I said, because most of the meetings you can take, I finally found a table, one seat over, sat down there, or I asked them if you're going to. And then I looked across the table and saw there's Joe Sutton, and his wife, Lily Cole. He is on the board of directors of Rotary International. So I said, and he there with some other business people, and very business man in Tokyo, or in Japan rather, and a number of other business people there as well. And so I introduced the business that didn't speak English, wasn't a problem, because I ended up next to me was their interpreter. She was the interpreter and cultural liaison for the White House, for Jimmy Carter, Ronald Reagan, George Bush, Bill Clinton, and George Bush, George W. So she was my guy, I was giving him the watch. So, life is like a box of chocolates, you never know what you're gonna get. And the Rotary Convention is like a box of chocolates, you never know what you're gonna get or you're gonna be. So I hope that gives you a sense of what it was like there. I'm happy to talk to you, any of you about it, and we'll tell you what we used to get about it. But anything you want to know about this, the training materials will be posted, and Calgary's coming up, so sign up there. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you. Wonderful trip, and in summary, what I heard was we nearly avoided international incidents on 3 continents. If you accosting somebody on public transportation in Canadian, trying to run off to Tanzania and sector, and actually a lunch, who got in the so, but there wasn't any thank you. On service projects of the, or raffle, excuse me,
Well. Bad news is there's not a lot of money here. The good news is if you bought a ticket, you got a good chance to win. So let's see what we've got today. All right, I've got 800 31 1 1.
And you think that was anything? One point of the district conference without a congratulations. Okay, summer, do you mind next week if we do something on the yeah, we're a little short on time, you have a great update for us. Bottom line is we get to see the giant up, so he'll give us a little. Your favorite leader today, our service project for June is this weekend. It's at Crossroads Fellowship Church. We're on the board, we will be volunteering at an open pocket. And that's our organization that gathers clothes for children and they need help sorting them. So 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. link is in this bulletin to sign up. We really hope to get 10 people there, and then for one of those 10 people to be the project lead for this. So sign up today for that and then show up the letter. With that, here's the Turner membership.
However, one thing just for being here today, my name is Christopher, those who don't know me, I'm here for Raleigh. Super happy for all of our guests to be here today. I hope that you all get a sneak peek into our Rotary today, from our service projects, the speaker, to the things that we're doing locally as well as internationally. One of the other things we'd like to do here at Rotary Club quite often is inductions. So Jake, if I can have you come up front, please. It's been a joy to get to know Jacob over the past couple of weeks. He came here really engaged, excited to get become a part of the club dedication. Very excited to have his inductions. So today we have Jacob Balsey, sponsored by John today. But Jacob, the origin that application will be reviewed and approved in accordance with the club's constitution and bylaws. And we will now then proceed in the interviews to the membership, Rotary Club Raleigh, as well as the friendship and Rotary throughout the world. First, we have a few questions for you. Question number one.
Can you join us and describe the little lag service thoughts now?
Yes.
Question number two.
Funds in our activities for service projects and fundraising activities in support of our community.
And we join us in supporting Rotary centers worldwide in terms of these seven areas: promoting peace, disease prevention, providing clean water and sanitation, maternal and child health, basic education and literacy, economic and community development, and protecting the environment. Yes. You. And fellow Rotarians, will you join me in fostering and supporting Jacob as he joins us in our pursuit of adding habits for communities to ensure the public health? So these guys do.
Well.
You. Here is the five. Jacob is local. And we're going to you keep joining me, welcome Jacob to the Rotary Club. Last two things I wanted to bring just short time, we had one showing at the neighbor health. So thank you for all of those who came to support Daniel and neighbor health and their mission of moving, and thanks for opening up your home to everyone and doing a tour of that. Like very well received. And last but not least, not last week because we weren't here, but the week before last, at the meeting, I asked if anybody's interested in learning more about mentorship. Because that's one of the things that we're trying to do to better improve the experience of our youth members joining the club, to meet me after the meeting. And I'll give everybody the down, nobody showed up. So please, if you are interested in learning more about what it means to be a mentor, please come find me. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Erica, and welcome, Jacob. It's an honor to have you in the club. Excited to see what you do in their club. All right, birthday's the anniversary and the Charlie Upshaw. It's your birthday. Happy birthday. Here we go. Happy to when you're in between Charlie and Bob. Happy birthday to my mom, Jean, tomorrow. So, Bob Miller, I did not see him today. His birthday is on the 5th, and he pharma on the 6th. And my friend asked him, I think he's calling today, on the 9th. Anniversary. Carol Bill also have an anniversary today. He got married. It's cool on the 5th. And then Martin and Sarah Ward on the 7th. So happy anniversary and birthdays to them. Without further ado, this is going to be a very exciting presentation. So grateful that Mr. Jonathan Blaes is here to talk to us today. But before he comes up to the podium, I'd like to read a little bit about his background and what led him to the National Weather Service in Raleigh. Jonathan serves as a meteorologist-in-charge at the National Weather Service in Raleigh, Florida, Texas. Jonathan completed his undergraduate work at North Carolina State University in 1995 with a degree in meteorology. He served as the NWS office in Raleigh, Virginia, and Albany, New York, and home to Raleigh in the fall of 1998 as a board member. Then as the information technology officer, and most recently as the client operations officer, working in web science and training while facilitating collaborative research activities with universities and other partners. We make an offer of 23 scientific technicians and support staff to provide local water and community data, forecast stories, and impact based decision support services for the protection of life and property and enhancement of the national economy. It's also an honor to know Jonathan personally, with Paul and I from our time in the state. He fostered an environment in the U.S. Raleigh office where students can come in and get experience on the board assets. So please join me in welcoming wonderful man to the audience, Mr. Jonathan Blaes.
All right, well, good afternoon. Thank you for the introduction, Gary, and it's my first meeting as a guest of the Rotary Club, and so I'm honored to be here, and I'm excited to talk to you about the hurricane season. This won't be a review of the Carolina hurricanes and their season, or a prelude to what will hopefully be a productive off-season for them, but more a look at the hurricane season that may impact us, our families, and our community, as well as businesses. So as we get started here, let me, I have a couple graphics here. I'm a scientist by nature and training, so forgive me for that, but I think I only have 2 science slides up here. So we'll see how we do here. On the screen is a map of the Atlantic Ocean. Is there a laser here? Yes. Okay, so in the upper left, you can see the continental United States, just to orient yourselves. And there's the Atlantic Ocean shown there in the warm colors. That Atlantic Basin is what our talk is going to be about today. We refer to it commonly as hurricane season. Really, we're talking about something called tropical cyclones. Those are special kind of storms that feed off warm ocean water. In other parts of the world, they're called different things: typhoons in the Western Pacific, cyclones in the Indian Ocean, willies near Australia. But for us, we call them hurricanes. And there's 1 or 2 important ingredients that allow hurricanes and tropical cyclones to form. The most important ingredient is warm ocean water. That is essentially the fuel, the energy, what makes tropical cyclones happen. And this graphic you see here is a analysis of the ocean water temperatures over the Atlantic Basin as compared to normal. This was taken about a week ago, maybe 2 days ago. The warm colors jump out at you, telling you that the water temperatures in the ocean right now are many degrees warmer than they should be this time of year. In fact, the ocean water temperatures across much of the Atlantic Ocean is warmer now in late May or early June than it would typically be in August, when hurricane season is typically at its peak. So that should be raising alarm bells. The ocean waters, the fuel for hurricanes, are already well above normal in terms of their potential to provide energy and heat for them. Heat from the ocean, that warm, steamy water, is one of the fuels for hurricanes. Another component that tends to determine activity or the potential for hurricanes, tropical cyclones to form, is something called upper level wind shear. So there's a lot going on in this graphic, and I apologize for what's going on there. But this graphic is designed to talk about El Nino and La Nina. I think a lot of us have heard of those terms, but maybe don't know what they're about. Essentially, it has to do with the ocean water temperature in, of all places, the Eastern Pacific Ocean. And it's shown on the top 2 graphics there, or images. That is a view of the western part of Earth. Look at the upper right, you can maybe make out North America and a little bit of Mexico there. Essentially, in that box where those arrows are pointing to in the top 2 disk images is the region of the Eastern Pacific Ocean and its temperature relative to normal. On the left image, it says El Nino at the top just above it. That's a condition where the water temperatures in the Pacific Ocean are warmer than normal. That extra heat promotes thunderstorm development, which causes the atmosphere to adjust, and it makes the jet stream that moves across the tropics much stronger than normal. For us here, it typically means a warm, wet image. In the upper right image is an image of the water temperatures during La Nina, the opposite of El Nino. And that's when the water temperatures in the Eastern Pacific are typically cooler than normal. That's what we're transitioning into right now. And one would think, what does that really matter for us? Well, what that matters is that that cooler water temperature in the Pacific actually will allow the jet stream to weaken and subside, which will allow, make an environment much more favorable for hurricanes and tropical cyclones to develop, organize, and maintain themselves. So it's kind of a theme here of how, we think a lot, and I know from what I've seen today, is that the globe is connected and we're all working together. Here is water temperatures out in the Eastern Pacific, west of Peru, that drive and determines a lot of the weather we have here. So the ingredients for tropical cyclones: warm ocean water provides the fuel. We have a big check mark. We're already in there now. We are later in summer. Well, the winds in the atmosphere, the jet stream, provide less wind shear. It just means storms and hurricanes won't get torn apart. Well, that's likely to happen because we're transitioning into this La Nina. And the last ingredient are disturbances or seedlings that tend to be the initial pieces for these tropical cyclones and hurricanes to develop. Those are given, those can happen every year. One way we can get more of them is if we actually have more rain in Africa. That provides more disturbances that could potentially develop into tropical cyclones that would affect us. So the ingredients are there for an active hurricane season. And what does the press release from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration report at the end of May? Above normal, much above normal hurricane season is predicted. That research and that analysis is also corroborated by a bunch of academic institutions, folks who have been doing this for decades at Colorado State, other universities, and of course, NC State has gotten into this game. They also predict a much more active hurricane season than normal. So in the Atlantic Ocean this year, the pie chart there shows the probabilities. Yellow shows the probabilities of above normal activity, 85%. That's the highest I've ever seen in my life. There's only a 5% chance of below normal activity. And I would think that I don't think there'll ever be a chance where the government does at least throw 5% chance of below normal in there. So that is a given. So confidence is very high. Going to be a lot of storms. On the right side of the graphic, the number of named storms in the Atlantic Ocean this year is predicted to be between 17 and 25. The typical year would be 14. The number of hurricanes in the Atlantic, 8 to 13 are predicted. Typically that is 7. And then major hurricanes, which are category 3 or stronger hurricanes, this year we expect up to potentially 7 of those. So it's going to be a busy year. When do those storms typically occur? Here's a graph on the bottom. There's a calendar there showing you the months of May through December. And the red is a graph of the number of hurricanes and tropical cyclones combined, and the yellow of the number of hurricanes. You can see that those numbers ramp up tremendously as we head into September, peak of the second week of September, and move into October. So it shouldn't be a surprise that we haven't seen hurricanes develop yet, and sometimes you see weak storms early in the season. But the potential for things to get very busy as we head into late July and especially August is certainly there. What would it look like? Well, here's a map of the hurricane and tropical storm tracks from last season. For the most part, North America and continental United States was spared a large number of storms, but there was a significant storm that went through Florida and then across Georgia and South Carolina. That was Dahlia, I believe, that caused all sorts of damage in the Big Bend region, the Panhandle area, I think, of Florida. But for the most part, many of them were off the sea. So just because there are more hurricane forecasts doesn't mean we're going to be hit by every one, or we're going to have a ton of them moving on shore here. But by the fact that there be more storms would likely mean the probability greater impacts here is going to be there. I have a slide in here about using trusted resources or sources of information. So one problem we have, besides just forecasting the weather in our business, is dealing with those who like to stir up interest, brag, whatever, get clicks on Facebook, that kind of thing. So we tend to struggle with that a little bit. And so my plea here is for you all as members of community and business leaders and the like, is to rely on trusted sources for your weather information, not necessarily the young person in their on their phone with drawing graphics that scare people and get lots of clicks, but reach out to the media members you trust, to the government and folks like that. Those people don't have a lot to sell you. They aren't looking for clicks necessarily, but your public interest is that hard. So what can you do to be prepared or ahead of the hurricane season? As right now, as we are in the beginnings of it, develop a plan for what you would do. That could be a plan for yourself and your family. What would you do if a hurricane, tropical storm were to impact you? How am I going to take care of my pets? What am I going to do with my horses, with my children, with my grandparents who rely on? Make sure your home is in good shape. Plan a little bit. Basically, just kind of think ahead and kind of get your act together of what you would do. For us here in the central part of North Carolina, typically we don't deal with storm surge, the strongest of winds, that kind of thing. Typically, what we're dealing with is heavy rain, it causes freshwater flooding and power outages. We love our trees here in Raleigh. Trees also cause a lot of power outages. Those of you who have been around for a little while probably remember many storms that start with the letter F that seem to mess us up, and they are problematic. So thinking about this, prepare ahead of time, and put yourself in the best position possible. And so understanding forecast information is important. Again, you get reliable information. Don't necessarily rely on that friend or that neighbor or that stranger on Facebook. And during the storm, be smart, take care of yourself, make good decisions, use common sense. Power outages, again, are our biggest problem around here in terms of inconvenience. That could mean that you're without air conditioning for a long time. That could mean your business and your restaurant will be without power and you have to manage inventory and keeping your food safe and that kind of thing. It could be you can't get to the pharmacy. It may mean you don't have cash. And without power, all those things that we tend to do a lot of days now with chips and cards are not necessarily going to be available. Cash will be king if there was a real disaster. So be prepared for that kind of thing. Then after the storm, the danger is not over. Power outages often result in traffic problems and crashes. There's flooding. The flooding typically lags behind the storm in this part of the world, of course. That's a danger if you're without power. Using generators. Typically, that has been responsible for 5% of hurricane deaths in inland areas, because folks are using a generator in their garage or on their porch next to their house. Again, common sense things, but when you're desperate, sometimes you rush, sometimes you don't make the best choices. That's why planning ahead and being smart can keep you and your family safe. So what are the hurricane or tropical cyclone names for this year? It's crossed off here, at least on this screen here. The F storm this year is the Francine. So Hurricane Fran, which we were here back in the day, moved across North Carolina, caused all sorts of havoc. If you lived here, you remember that storm for sure. That storm name was so bad it was retired, but the geniuses or the gods or whatever you want to call it decided, well, we won't give up on Fran, we come up with Francine this year. So that is the F storm. That is the storm certainly won't come this year. But also, you know, on 21 names up there, we're predicting up to 25 storms this year. So there's a backup list. That gets used now if we go beyond prepared storms there. I think that was all I had in terms of prepared information at this point. Other images and slides, if there are questions, but I second some questions. Okay, or any questions or interests or topics you guys would like to talk about? Your hand went up first in the blue shirt, sir.
So we all know weather projections are not 100% accurate. So I'm curious, every year we hear these projections. So what's your, in the last, period of time, 10 years, how close will the predictions to the actual?
In terms of hurricane season and the number of storms the Atlantic Ocean, they do really well. Not perfect. If you notice, there's a range there because there's uncertainty. Betting apps, sports betting is really popular, it seems like these days. If you could bet, and actually you can, but I don't want to speak about betting from some guests here, but I would put a lot of money. The payout would not be good. I would be shocked if it is not an above average season in the Atlantic this year for sure. Doesn't necessarily mean though that Raleigh is going to be impacted by North Carolina, but this is a worrisome year. These hurricane predictions and seasonal predictions don't necessarily have a lot of value for a lot of day-to-day folks because, all right, it's going to be a busier year, but you just want to wait for that storm to develop and kind of get ready. But for other folks, there's a whole industry on reinsurance and people buying insurance on ahead of seasons like this. So the power companies, banking, industrial folks can better prepare themselves for that. So there's a lot of interest in that. But for the average day-to-day person, maybe not fairly actionable. But this forecast, I would be a lot more confident in this forecast than the forecast that says we're going to get snow this year or we're going to get big storm, in a month from now. Yes.
Can you provide Jim Cantori's contact information? I want to tell him to stay the hell out of North Carolina.
We can talk after the talk. But I can help you, yes. Good.
Yeah, I was just wondering if there's a connection between the melting of ice caps and polar ice and sea level rise with the hurricane activity?
Sure, so I expected a question like this, I don't have a slide on this. The government and NOAA, it is, accepted that the climate is changing. That is a given, that is a science fact, climate evolves and changes. A topic question or associated question with that, is that caused by man or can that be proven? That's where things get a little dicier. Sea level rise itself isn't necessarily a contributor to this issue. But if you lived in Charleston, 50 years ago, it would flood Charleston 2 or 3 times a year. Now in Charleston, it floods on sunny days like this once a month, twice a month. Sea levels are rising for sure. The cause of that is in dispute a little bit. We know the climate's evolving, but we see data that the climate, more importantly, is warming, which is causing your melting. And that warming climate results in warmer seawater temperatures that are warmer for a longer period of time. They start earlier, they stay warm later. So the period and length of the hurricane season may be longer and also may impact different parts of the world as well. So there are a lot of connections there. There's a lot of worry. One concern though, of a lot of predictions and kind of science connections is that we don't have real actionable good data on tropical cyclones 30, 40, 50 years, right? Going back beyond that, yeah, we know there's a big storm that hit Key West in 1900 and another storm that hit New Orleans this year. But we are really good at observing and detecting tropical cyclones now. So there's not one that's going to miss only in history books now. That wasn't the case in the 50s and 40s. So it's hard to say that storms are more active now than they used to be, or necessarily stronger than they used to be. But the science is very worrisome about this stuff. Yes, ma'am.
Is there a connection between tropical cyclones and the number of tornadoes that the middle of the country or Tornado Alley kind of suffer?
So not directly. Now again, it is accepted the climate is changing and evolving. I would be very careful though, and some people do this to their own detriment, to say this storm is because of climate change. It was really hot for a week last June. That was definitely climate change. That's not the case. Weather is day to day, week to week. Climate is seasons and longer period. It could be argued that those kind of things are happening more frequently. Again, we're also very good about detecting these storms, tornadoes, more so now than we used to be. So those things don't get missed in terms of whether they happen or not. So that's where things get a little tricky. On a personal side, I would totally expect there to be stronger storms and more storms down the road if this kind of trend will continue, but it's hard to say that's happening. Yes, you had a question?
Yeah, to your point about data.
Yeah.
It was like the Wild West. Is the hurricane going to hit Kansas or is it going to hit, not even hit the coast? So to your point about data, where do you think that we are in terms of really pinpoint accuracy in terms of long-term forecast?
So let me pivot a little bit in terms of long-term from that. On the right side of this screen here is the National Hurricane Center forecast for what was Tropical Storm Idalia there near Cuba. This was from last summer in August. And you see this thing, so the storm is centered just southwest of Cuba, there between there and the Yucatan and the orange dot, and it kind of moves off to the north and northeast. This is what's called a hurricane cone. That's the area shaded there in white. Right now, that cone goes out 5 days. The forecast of tropical cyclone track is really good, and it has gotten really good over the years. The forecast position 3 days from now, this year, is as good as the 1 day forecast was 25 years ago, which is great news because that cone is smaller and we can pinpoint areas that need to be evacuated much more manageable. If this Idalia occurred in 1995, that cone would have included all of Florida, part of Alabama. So there have been millions of people needlessly evacuated, worrying, and doing so. So that is a successful sign. So the hurricane track forecasts have gotten really good. They're not perfect, but they've gotten really good. One place we struggle is intensity forecasts, which also is really important, but that's the problem because hurricanes are just complicated and very symmetric, beautiful, almost you could call complexes of thunderstorms. So they're susceptible to small differences in water temperature, wind shear, various things. So they can kind of go up and down in intensity with small causes that are hard to detect. The track is much more manageable to forecast. So hurricane intensity forecasting is still a challenge, and that's likely to be a challenge for a long time. Of the past 10, 8 of the past 10 hurricanes, sorry, 8 of the past 10 strongest hurricanes in the Atlantic, they were tropical storms 3 days before they peaked in intensity. So in other words, the big one, when they go, they light up. And not as big a problem here in North Carolina, but in the Gulf of Mexico, like if you live in Mobile, those things are lighting up off the coast, and you have to keep them on in 6 hours because if they're exploding. So the intensity forecast is a huge challenge. The track forecast, we've gotten much better at. Not perfect for sure, but it's gotten much better. Yes.
So I noticed on your map of the Atlantic Ocean and how warm the ocean is, that around the coastal, like right around the coast everywhere, it didn't seem like there was that much unusual, like, if you look around, it seems like there's some kind of white areas and.
Yeah, sure.
Is there any particular reason for that? I'm sort of wondering, we were on vacation in Portugal, and went to the beach, a couple of weeks ago, and the water was super cold, and people were telling us that in January it was warmer. Yeah, and I just didn't know if there's any reason that this trend would not be as noticeable along the coast.
Sure. So like with a lot of things, when you look at things from a large view, they look nice and smooth, and your textbooks, everything's kind of glossy and, homogeneous. When you get down and drill within the data, it gets noisier and more complicated. So this is an anomaly. So this is a map of where the water temperature is different than it typically is. If you look off like the New England coast, south of Labrador and the Canadian Maritimes, you see some blues up there. So just like the weather is day to day here at our head level is what we care about, there is so much that goes on above us for tens of thousands of feet that drive the weather. Just like with sea surface temperatures, there's other things going on below the water that helps it, or causes it to be what it is. So those are like the areas where the water has been stirred up. And when you take warm water, water generally cools as you get lower, because you have less sunlight and heat. So if you can somehow make the water churn, you do what's called upwelling, or you can promote upwelling, which allows to hold the water below, come to the surface, and it cools the surface and becomes kind of a cycle. So my guess is there was probably a storm that moved off the East Coast during this picture, and it churned up the water, and it likely caused the water temperatures there to cool. Give it a week, it will likely smooth over, and that'll be a more seamless homogeneous kind of view. Same thing happens with hurricanes. You can look at this map after a hurricane goes through, and you would see a trail of cooler water in its wake as it's gone through the ocean, churned it up, and made the water cooler. So it's really fascinating, all the levels of detail that go into this science. One more question. Okay.
We're going on a transatlantic cruise from Europe to Southampton in September. What's the probability that it's going to be disrupted by a rain?
Yeah, so you go, at least you're going east and not south, right? So that's smart. Cruise industry knows this, and they plan. So they are usually aware of this. You see the horror stories and the videos sometimes of them sailing into places they probably don't want to be, and they don't want to be there any more than you do, because they don't want passengers getting upset, sick. They don't want that ship damaged, because they have that boat to leave Southampton 2 days later to come back. So they have a financial interest as well as your well interest. So for you, I would probably not worry too much. You probably have other problems that I would worry about. And enjoy your cruise.
John, thank you so much for coming to speak to us. I know it's a very calm season, and you don't need this for many things happening. But you're not Rotary going Okay. Another fun connection, the current National Hurricane Center Director is Mike Brennan, who graduated from the state, right? For those undergraduates.
And PhD, yeah.
And PhD. So lots of figures out here. Thank you again, John. Let's give another round of applause. Jonathan just told me he can remember the questions if you have things you want to talk about. So with that, everybody stand and join me in the four-way. And the things we think, say, and do, is it the truth? Is it fair for all concerned? Will it build itself and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Thank you, sir.